welcome to another session on women's writing. We shall continue with Elaine Showalter's the feminist novelists. So we stopped with the first few paragraphs of the text. We spoke of the various duties that Elaine Showalter expects from, or the reason as to why women writers must come, and this is basically, or the main reason is to bring out the sufferings of the fellow sisters. Okay, so let's continue from where we stopped. The chivalrous vision of the sacred influence of women had been a central concept of the Victorian feminine ideal. Now, when we started this essay, I did tell you that it was the time when women, Victorian writings, it was a period of change. It was a period when the Victorian traditions were actually declining, were being questioned. Okay, so here you find the central concept of Victorian feminine ideal. Now, we'll just read that paragraph and then we'll speak about, we'll have to do a little bit of reference, because without doing the reference, we'll not understand anything from this essay. We'll have absolutely no idea. We'll have to understand what this Victorian feminine ideal means. Okay, so we'll have to go a little to the Victorian period, and we have to find from the Victorian period what this feminine ideal means, and how it becomes, or it gets questioned, and how the modern woman moves away from all these, or these Victorian ideals are being questioned. What are these Victorian ideals, that is? So the chivalrous vision of the sacred influence of women had been a central concept of the Victorian feminine ideal. This vision most completely articulated in John Ruskin's essay of Queen's Garden. Now this essay was one that was, though it was kind of flattery of women, where women's work and their world is beautifully articulated by Ruskin, this was widely criticized by the feminists. Okay, and especially in his essay in Sesame and Lilies, projected the hope of national redemption onto the spiritual virginity of women who were unravaged by the power drives of the commercial society. Ruskin outlined a theory of compensations of the female sex role that was both flattering and narcotic. In particular, he emphasized the physical and psychological boundaries of woman's true place, the home. While men laboring in the outside world are wounded and hardened, to use his sexually loaded rhetoric, women intact in the home, the place of peace, the shelter, not only from injury, but from all terror, doubt and division, are secure in themselves and havens of safety of the threatened male. So he makes a comparison here as to women are safe. The best place for a woman is her home. She's safe from all the terrors and doubts and divisions and problems. Whereas men, on the other hand, they are always troubled. They have to face a lot of hardships in life. They are hardened. They are always insecure, whereas a woman is always safe from all these problems, and the best place for a woman is her home. So in a very flattering, very convincing way, he articulates that. stay home. Like where we have stay home, stay safe. Likewise, in the Victorian period, these people told women, but that was not the pandemic. They told women to stay home and to stay safe, because her place is home. The four walls of her home is what is essential. And here he flatters women. But again, before we move on, let's come back to this Victorian ordeal and why this essay was criticized by the feminists. So here, Elaine Showalter, she brings in the Victorian feminine ideals, which has been glorified in the Victorian times. Now, what is this Victorian ideal? What is this Victorian feminine ideal? This Victorian feminine ideal was a part of the domestic ideology which was present in the Victorian England. Okay, if you look at the way of their dressing, let me just take you a little further to history itself, and then don't worry, it's not going to be that boring. I can assure you that. So if you look at the dressing itself, the way they dressed, it is both figurative and literal meaning. There is a figurative, metaphorical and literal meaning. These women, they had to put on corsets. Corset is a kind of dress that would stick to their body, and they were very, very difficult to wear, tiresome to wear, and often painful also, very painful. Okay, so these corsets were made, and when they are put on, if you could Google or if you could watch in the YouTube the Victorian dressing, you will understand how difficult it was. They had to wear a lot of clothes. They had to wear several layers of clothes underneath the two, and it would take them a long time to get dressed also, and they could hardly move. Okay, and their waist would look smaller. So these corsets were made and to make her waist look smaller, and it concealed all the attractions of her body. And it was tight in the sense it would conceal all her, nothing would show out, and it was in a way they were trying to neutralize the woman's sexuality. That's why I said it has a literal as well as figurative meaning. Now, to understand this, I want you to just watch this Victorian dressings also, the way they got dressed in the Victorian period. If you look in the YouTube, you will be able to find it. Okay, we can say that these corsets was more of a complex control. Again, it's like a stick or a rod to control woman, a control system connected with woman's frozen position in the society. So she had no role or view or opinion of her own in the society. And this corset, if you look at the corset itself, if you look at their dressing itself, it was done in such a way that they could hardly move. They were frozen, like they were stiff. Okay, and they were very painful and restricted mobility. It limited her range of actions and influenced her behavior. It deprived her of the freedom that otherwise men had, and they had more comfortable clothes. So that's why I said these corsets can be seen in both metaphorical and literal sense. It was like a rod, a stick that controlled and subjugated the Victorian women. So it can also be seen as a narrow-minded nature or narrow-minded view of the patriarchal Victorian society, or the narrow-minded view that these patriarchal Victorian society had on women, the way they were looked upon. Okay, so in Victorian England, women had fixed gender roles. And this was mirrored in the way they dressed also. Okay, the woman's outfit was composed of several pieces, and that meant that the woman had to spend a lot of time in front of the mirror getting dressed. So the time in front of the mirror could have been perhaps used in woman's advantage. She could have perhaps studied, she could have perhaps written poetry, she could have written novels, but that was all restricted, and she was made to spend a lot of time in front of the mirror only getting dressed. So in a way, if you look at it, that is to show that woman, you are to look beautiful, look neutral, meaning beautiful in the sense you are to remain in the four walls of the house. So being in the mirror, in front of the mirror, means being inside the bedroom. Okay, she is controlled by the patriarchal society here. You have to look at it in that angle also. We'll be coming to rest of the things very soon. I'm speaking about the dress right now. So this meant that other things that she could have perhaps focused on is being denied to her. And it was to make woman look in a certain way also, as to how the society wants her to look. A Victorian woman should be pure, should be chaste, should look like this. She shouldn't be too attractive. She shouldn't be too sexy. Her sexuality must be neutralized. Then only you can call her a good woman, a perfect woman. Thus, unconsciously, a cultural construct is being ingrained in her. So, by imposing certain standards of feminine appearance, this is how a Victorian woman should behave. This is how a Victorian woman should get dressed. This is how she has to act. This is how she has to speak. Men, this patriarchal society or men, controlled both woman's body and her mind and her soul. Thus, in the Victorian period, they used all the means possible, right from her clothing, to make sure that women were suppressed and did not benefit the freedom to choose or act for themselves. They didn't have even the freedom of freeing themselves from this troubled, this tiresome outfit, because the society wants them dressed like that. So you have studied this in a way in the French Lieutenant's Woman, right? You see two sides, the two women, one the extreme end that goes against the society, and the other one who is a Victorian woman. Even looking at the mirror to find herself naked, she thinks she's doing such a big crime, or she's doing something wrong that is terrifying. So you see the two different attitudes. Okay, and the one who goes against or rebels against the Victorian society, the one who rebels against how all these patriarchal norms, is considered a whore, a prostitute, a woman who cannot be considered good, impure. So thus, right from this impractical clothing to the obligation to satisfy the standard of feminine appearance imposed by this Victorian society contributed to women's oppression. So Victorian feminine ideal, now we are coming to that. So Victorian feminine ideal was the gender roles that women was entitled by the society. The society has entitled her certain gender roles. These gender roles limited a woman's activity to the domestic sphere. Almost all the occupation outside the house was closed to her. Being a doctor, being an engineer, all these were like, be it going even to the college. So, the representative poet were Tennyson. He's a good poet. He's a great poet. But he was the first person to object to having a woman's college. So, the Victorian England was like that. A woman means she has to spend her time inside the four walls of the house. Anything outside the sphere, all occupation outside the house is close to her. So whoever adventured outside was a fallen woman like Sarah in the French Lieutenant. Okay. French Lieutenant's woman, that is. So every decent or good Victorian woman had to have or must display certain conventional attributes of femininity if she wanted to be seen by her family as a good woman. If not, it's fine, but you will be considered as a whore, you will be considered as a prostitute, an impure woman. And this is the so-called ideal woman. Okay, it was mostly in the upper class. The middle class or the lower class were not concerned about this. Especially not the lower class. They didn't have to concern much about this because they don't have such norms. But for the upper class, being an ideal woman was very, very important. So, according to the Victorians, a woman who embodies the ideal of femininity is one who is sexually, that is in bed, she is passive. She should not have more emotions or more feelings than her husband. She should be passive in bed, not active than her husband. One who is subordinate to man, one who is a devoted wife, a mother, even if the husband is abusive, even if the husband is intolerant, even if he is a beast or divorces her, she should sacrifice her life for the benefit of her children, for the benefit of her family, for the benefit of her husband. One who is virtuous, one who is selfless, one who is gentle, one who is pure, one who is pure as an angel. That is an ideal woman. She should not raise her voice. She cannot speak loudly. She should be subject to all kinds of torture. She cannot retort back. That is an ideal woman. So, the society, that is the patriarchal society, when they decided this feminine ideal, they never cared if women wanted to be like that or not. They never took into consideration the woman's feeling. They are the ones who set the rules for how a woman should behave. They are never concerned of how it would affect her or whether she is for it, she agrees or for it or not. They assumed that a woman is like an angel by its own nature. All women are angels. It is the society that drives her to the verge of being a demon. Thus, an ideal always presupposes, what is the word ideal? Ideal man, ideal husband, ideal wife. It presupposes something called perfection by its nature, right? Unfortunately, humans are not perfect. We are not perfect. So, in reality, the ideal of femininity led to a terrible time for women because, see, we are not perfect, and therefore, when we think about being perfect, we are stressed. Sometimes we should just let go. We should just not feel too perfect. We all yearn to be perfect. Our parents also tell us, behave like this, be calm, be like this, you're a girl, you should behave like this, you can't shout, and so on and so forth, so many things, blah, blah, blah. And we take all these things into our head. Okay, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, and for you are daughters, you are a sister, you're a friend. So you take all these things, how you have to behave in front of people, how the society wants you to behave. All these things are put into your head, are stored, constructed. They're culturally constructed. These cultural constructs are stuffed into your head, and you strive to become like the perfect woman. And many often we end up not being able to become the perfect woman. And many often we are stressed out. So sometimes we have to let go. Not always, but sometimes we have to let go, and we have to understand that life itself is not perfect. We ourselves are not perfect. So it is okay to be imperfect at times. So likewise here, as I was talking, the ideal of femininity, this perfection of femininity that was superimposed on women during the Victorian time led to a terrible time for her. Many went through hysteria, many became mad, for these rules were too much for them to bear. It's not like that. At least, see, right now you will not understand, because you have, say, namakku korchum kuda freedom undu. We have freedom today. We have the right to voice our opinion. But in those times, especially the Victorian period, they were completely suppressed and oppressed. So many women went through a lot of terrible times. They went through hysteria, and some committed suicide, some were, mentally and totally derailed. So in fact, this concept of ideal femininity ensured the male dominance in Victorian period. This was used as a means to keep women chained. But around the 19th century, there were women who began to question all these set of rules, especially the ideal of femininity, and they demanded legal rights and also the possibility of a life outside the domestic sphere. They started rebelling against these the so-called concept of ideal woman. The Industrial Revolution, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, that was a major welcome for women's emancipation. And this vision, that is the ideal Victorian women or the Victorian feminine ideal, is what John Ruskin in his essay Queen's Garden writes about. In this essay, in his work Sesame and Lilies, published in 1864, it flatters women. I told you, right? It flatters women. You are all safe. You are supposed to be at home. Keep yourself safe at home. Men are toiling hard. They have to face a lot of difficult times that you don't know. And since you are in the house, home is the most peaceful heaven that can be provided. So he speaks of the virtues of women, and represents them as one who is faithful, who is a wise counselor, who is just, and who is always there by her man's side. His aim is to demonstrate from the teachings of great poets and writers the functions and domain of women. She is the center of order. She is the balm of distress. She is the mirror of beauty. So he uses quotes from so many poets to show where a woman's place is, and that is home. She or her power is for rule, not battle. And where should she rule? She should rule inside the house. The house is the place where she has to rule. And she is not fit for the battle. She is not to rule. So there is an irony there, rule and battle. So battle, the king battles, right? The king is always the one who goes on a war and wages war, conquers and battles. And rule, who rules? The domestic sphere. For the better, the functioning of the palace, the woman, the queen rules. She is in charge of her domestic sphere. So she rules there. Okay. Her intellect, it is not her intellect. Her intellect is not for discoveries. John Ruskin says in his essays, her intellect is not for discoveries, but rather for inventions, not for discoveries or invention, but for the sweet order and arrangements and decisions that has to be made. So don't trouble your soft little brain with discoveries and inventions. That's not for it. Our brain is for the sweet order of arrangements and decisions that has to be given to man, that has to be taken to keep her rule peaceful, so to keep and maintain peace. And a true wife keeps the home in perfect order. A home is what a noble woman makes of. So he flatters woman. He flatters, he brings in the so-called feminine ideal. So though he starts by flattering her, he is basically employing this very feminine ideal in a calm and peaceful way. He makes her or the wife feel superior, that man is man, he's always burdened, he's threatened, he has to work hard. Women on the other hand, she has a place of shelter, she is peaceful, and she is the one who can keep man pacified and calm in her duties as a wife, to keep him calm, to keep him pacified, to see to all his needs. So she has to be at home. So if you look at his essay, you will find what he's hinting at. Woman means home. So if you look at the quotes also, the lines that is quoted towards the end here. Wherever a true wife comes, his home is always around her. The stars only may be over her head, the glowworm in the night, cold grass may be only fire at her foot, but home is yet wherever she is. So this is a flattery for her, to tell her that she is the one who makes a home. It is true, a mother or a woman is the one who makes her home, but she is also talented. She is equally talented as her male counterpart. She is multi-talented. She can invent, she can discover, just like any scientist, any male scientist can. She can even rule. Our Indira Gandhi, for instance, right? Our Pratibha Patel. So many instances of strong women. The history has produced strong women. Cleopatra, the Queen Elizabeth, even the present Queen Elizabeth, who's ruling us now. Who's ruling England now. So it is proven. Even Victoria, Queen Victoria. See, the irony is Queen Victoria herself was very powerful, but then she is one who brought in this ideals of femininity as well. Okay, that we'll not go into that because that will become very controversial. So we'll stop with that. Okay, but so that's for the history. I hope you understood this feminine ideal. Now let's come back to the topic. I hope what John Ruskin meant also in his essays. So he was flattering women, but eventually his idea was very simple: stay at home. That's where the woman is supposed to be, home. Okay, so by 1880, however, this theory was discarded. This theory became outdated. The feminists reversed and transposed this into an activist key. It is one trup card for them, and they reversed and transposed this into a activist key, marking the ideal of womanhood, perfect womanhood, which actually are that applies to idealized female traits. Again, their viewpoints were changed. Feminine ideal എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് മാറിയിട്ട് ന്യൂ വുമൺ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു സംഭവമായിട്ട് മാറുകയാണ്. അവിടെ they themselves are giving some female traits. They themselves are defining their roles. Women are defining the roles. So there was a change in this deal. In this ideal, the new woman was born. That's a very historical moment also. And you have Sarah Grant. Sarah Grant is an Irish writer who used this term for the first time in 1894. Okay, this new woman meant independent woman. So seeking this radical change, her independence was not simply a matter of the mind, it also involved physical changes in activity and also in the way she dressed. This freedom expanded her ability to engage with more broader and more active world. The new woman pushed the limits set by male dominant society. This is vividly portrayed in Ibsen's plays. You have studied Ibsen's play, right? A dollhouse, right? Yeah, so in Ibsen's plays you will find this, which the idea of new woman. So this ideal of true womanhood or new woman can be seen as a subculture of feminism. Again, what is a subculture? This is a feminist phase. We have three phases, among which this is the feminist phase. ഈ വുമൺഹുഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു സംഭവം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സബാൾട്ടേൺ, നൗ വി ഹാവ് സബാൾട്ടേൺ, ദ മാർജിനലൈസ്, ദ മൈനോറിറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു സംഭവത്തിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഭാഗമാണ് ഫെമിനൈൻ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഫെമിനിസം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഇതിൻ്റെ ഒരു സബ് കൾച്ചറായിട്ട് വരും ദിസ് ന്യൂ വുമൺഹുഡ് ആൻഡ് ഓൾ. ഈ ഫെമിനിസ്റ്റ് phase is the main thing in which you will have the subculture which is new woman. Again, subculture is something we are not going into it. Literally, it has a lot of other definitions also, but that you will study when you do your PG. Okay, so according to Elaine Showalter, woman culture is basically, that's what I said, divided into three phases: feminine, feminist, female phase. In the first phase, that is the feminine phase, during this period, women wrote. Now we come back to Elaine Showalter. We come back to women as a writer. So till now we studied, or we were discussing about woman's role in the society, how she was subjugated and how she was looked down upon. Okay, and now we are coming back to Elaine Showalter, where we discuss women writers. Okay, the reason as to why we need women writers. All right, so the first phase, in the feminine phase, women wrote out of their subculture, and they attempted to make equal achievements of male culture. They wanted to have an equal achievement just like the male culture. They also wanted to develop and enlarge the domain of female representatives. These women included, had various perspectives and various concerns that they needed to solve. So this phase lasts up to 1880. Okay. Now in the second phase we had, that is the feminist phase, it was a sort of conscious rebellion. Now that we are talking about the feminist phase, even Elaine Showalter in this essay also, it is a second phase. We are dealing with a second phase. So it was a sort of conscious rebellion, or conscious rebellion pole aayirunnu. 1880 മുതൽ 1920, please take down the note the year, okay. 1880 തൊട്ട് 1920 വരെയുള്ള ഒരു പീരീഡാണ് ഫെമിനിസ്റ്റ് ഫേസ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സെക്കൻഡ് ഫേസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഇറ്റ് വാസ് എ ടൈം ഓഫ് വുമൺ സഫറേജ്, ദ റൈറ്റ് ടു വോട്ട്, ആൻഡ് എ ടൈം ഓഫ് ഗ്രേറ്റ് ഫെമിനിസ്റ്റ് ആക്ഷൻ. Many political and socialized works appeared during or even work matralla, several moments also, several historical changes also, so historical moments also appeared during this period. By this time women rejected passivity and the non-competent separation of spheres basic to feminine ideal. Yes, it was nothing about this section or this occupation was not meant for her. She started experimenting wherever she could reach, whatever she could do, and she was not going to be subjugated. So this was a period of conscious rebellion. The feminist, the second phase, was a period of conscious rebellion, and in this period they became self-assertive and career-oriented. Their male contemporaries like Hardy and all, they visualized the new women as one who fulfilled their own fantasies of sexual freedom. Now when we come to that sections, we will find that there were several writers who wrote for the female, feminine, took up feminine concerns. But again, if you closely read their writings, you will find that they are writing about or they feel that women fulfill their own fantasies through writing. They are fulfilling their own fantasies of suppressed sexual freedom. So in a way, if you look at some of these writings, they are anti-feminist to them. Okay. Now when you come to Freud is the one who would most sought after, I think, person. You would label him as an anti-feminist kind of a person, because you have studied that in methodology when I taught you the psychoanalytical criticism, where he speaks about the penis envy. Women are always, their main problem is that they lack or they always want to be like men. That's because they lack what men has. So that kind of nature, Freud's attitude. So the feminist writers, they demanded self-control. They wanted men to write, but in such a way that they cannot write whatever they please. They wanted them to have a license, or they wanted them to be conscious of what they write. They demanded self-control for men, especially in what they write, rather than license to write anything and everything about women as they like. അവരുടെ ഇഷ്ടമുള്ള പോലെ തോന്നിയതുപോലെ ഒരു സ്ത്രീനെ പോർട്രേ ചെയ്ത് വെക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല എന്നുള്ള ഒരു വലിയൊരു കോൺഷ്യസ് റെബല്യസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വോയിസ് അങ്ങോട്ട് ആ ഒരു ടൈമിലാണ് വരുന്നത്. The male contemporaries took the idea of female influence seriously, and they wanted to make it a genuine source of political or power also. Many, including Freud, they spoke in a very negative light. Freud said that they were putting teeth in the vagina. Now that's a very age-old saying. It's a Greek saying. This means women is an imperfect man എന്നുള്ളൊരു അർത്ഥമാണ് ശരിക്കും അതിനകത്ത് വരുന്നത്. അതേപോലെ തന്നെ യു ആർ പുട്ടിങ് യുവർ സെൽഫ് ഇൻ ടു എ ലോട്ട് ഓഫ് ട്രബിൾ ആൻഡ് ബീയിങ് വിത്ത് എ വുമൺ ഇറ്റ് സെൽഫ് ഇസ് എ ട്രബിൾ എന്നുള്ളൊരു അർത്ഥമാണ്. എനിത്തിങ് ടു ഡീൽ വിത്ത് ഹർ ഇസ് ലൈക്ക് ട്രബിൾസം. ഷീ വിൽ eventually you will the outcome is that you will be ruined by her എന്നുള്ളൊരു ഫീലിംഗ് ആണ് ഇവിടെ കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നത്. സോ Freud always states that women is always dominated by their sexual reproductive functions. Okay, so that's what we have in this paragraph. And then the next, that is the next page, that is page 20. We are going very slowly because I'm not intending to take the whole thing fast. So we'll go very slowly. I've just completed 2 paragraphs only, and the next paragraph we shall move on to the next paragraph of social Darwinism in the next class. Okay, so I hope you understood the evolution of the second phase and how this new woman their version of new womanhood was seen by the male counterparts. They were quite serious about it, and they knew that this was something that is going to get out of their hands also. A woman came out, which she became self-oriented, she became career-oriented, she became self-assertive. It was like a conscious rebellion. She also wanted her male counterparts to be careful of what they write. They cannot write anything and everything that they please about women. Okay? Earlier in the first phase, it was like trying to be equal with them, trying to be in par with them. But here, they rejected all that, and they were like, be careful, be careful of what you write. And they were becoming powerful, they were becoming self-assertive. Okay, so we'll stop here and we shall continue in the next class. So till then, thank you and keep safe.